Good morning, sir. Congratulations on the Raid 2. And by the way, I'm a member of the Critics' Choice, the Broadcast Film Critics Association, and we just gave you your film, Raid 2, a Critics' Choice seal of approval. Quite a feat for a sequel, huh?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, you are so welcome. Now, here's what I really think about the movie. It is really an affecting crime thriller masquerading as a martial arts movie. Am I right?
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I mean, since it's one of those things where, and I never mean this in a disparaging way for the genre, but like when it came to the first movie, I always saw it more like a survival thriller, like a survival horror, than a martial arts film. And for me, like the martial arts was always more like the action discipline as opposed to the genre. And for this one, I wanted it to be like that like an American crime movie, a gangster movie, also a Japanese yakuza movie, but with martial arts being the action discipline.
Yeah,
So thank you for pointing that out.
Now, what got you interested in making a sequel for The Raid?
Weirdly, I had the script written for this one before I even had the script written for the Raid 1. So about 4 years ago, I had this idea for a standalone film and tried to get the budget raised for that one for 2 years, and we couldn't get the money raised at all. And so after 2 years of trying and failing, the Raid 1 became like a backup project. It became like a plan B. And so while I was writing the Raid 1, I started to look back in that old script and think like, what can I make different? What can I change around here to kind of make it work better, make it pop? And one of the things that came up was that idea of, what if we make the main character in that other movie an undercover cop? And what if I connect it to the events of the Raid 1? And so then when I decided that, then after the Raid 1 became a success, I was able to bankroll that second movie then. And so it was retrofitting an original script to become the sequel then.
Now, I understand that your background was really a documentarian. But so tell us a quick genesis of how the first Raid came about.
Well, I did one documentary back then. It's a weird thing because the documentary is what gave me my opportunity to get my career. But before I did the documentary, I was only ever interested in narrative fiction. And so it took me taking a step away from what I wanted to do to be able to find something that would give me a career in what I actually ended up wanting to become. So doing that documentary taught me all about Silat, taught me all about the culture and the philosophy behind it. But then it also introduced me to these like phenomenal fighters and performers that I've now ended up casting in all of my movies, since Morantau to the Raid 1 and now to the Raid 2.
Right? But you know what? Being a documentarian, though, does not train you to have an eye on great action pieces. And you do, sir, have a great eye on action pieces. Especially, I was floored over by your car chase scenes in the Raid 2. I mean, it's quite smashing, pun intended.
Thank you. Basically, the whole thing about like shooting action scenes, it comes from a place whereby when the guys are doing the choreography work, I work closely with them on it. So I'm able to sort of sit in there in the room and then see all the sort of the thinking process of like, why this punch, why this kick, why this block, why this throw, and to create structure and, pacing for the fight sequences together as a team. And so by being involved in that early stage, then it means that when it comes time to picking the shots to represent the fight sequences, I'm kind of as close to the choreography as they are. So then I don't want to lose any of that detail either. And I think that's one thing that's kind of missing nowadays in some of the action films you see, is that like a lot of times these days they're filmed by a director and a DOP that just wants to get their master and then jump in for coverage. Whereas what I do is I treat every single shot like it's a jigsaw piece. Like it's important to show this angle is for this movement, this angle is for this movement. And so every shot becomes important. Every single shot becomes like, well, as I said earlier, like a jigsaw piece. And then, we don't over edit. We stick to the rules that we set out in that design of the fight sequences. And sometimes I guess like that kind of resonates more with an audience now, because you feel like you're being guided through a fight where you get a full sense of geographical understanding of the location and also of the sort of the emotional arc of the fighters that they go through themselves from the beginning of the fight all the way through till the end of the fight.
You are absolutely correct, Mr. Gareth. Your action scenes have some meat behind them. It's just not an eye candy, if you may. Although you provided such great eye candy for the movie.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. For me, it's always got to come from story first. And we will make our fight scenes visceral, and we'll make them kind of energetic and adrenaline-fueled. But for me, it's more about how does it move the plot forward? How does it kind of affect the characters? But then also, like, how does each one then build up this sense of action and reaction and consequences, so that we can easily get into the next sequence as well.
Correct. Now, now that the Raid 2 is actually quite successful, have you thought of maybe making the Raid 3?
I have an idea for the Raid 3. It's still in my head at the moment, so it's not actually on a piece of paper yet. And basically the general concept is like this. With the Raid 2, we kind of started the Raid 2 2 hours after the Raid 1 finished, in terms of the chronology of the story. And for the Raid 3, I want to actually have that be 2 to 3 hours before the Raid 2 finishes. So we'll go back in time a little bit into the ending of the Raid 2, and then branch off from a storyline that ends up happening there. So it's sort of the decisions made by one of the groups. There's a fallout to those decisions. There's a set of consequences, and that's what we're going to follow in the Raid 3.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Gareth. Congratulations on the Raid 2 again. And you can escape Wales and visit Palm Springs, California sometime.
I'd love to. I've been to Palm Springs before. It's a beautiful town, so yeah, I'd love to kind of go out there again. Thank you so much, by the way, as well.
Thank you so much again, and congrats again, okay? Goodbye.